It now gives me great pleasure to introduce this year's senior speaker, Tim Marcroft. The senior speaker is selected through a competitive process in which candidates present their speeches before a panel of faculty, staff, and students, and the speech deemed the most worthy is selected. This year, it was Tim's. I'd like to say a few words about him. Don't worry, we all like you here. A graduate of the International Baccalaureate program at Winston Churchill High School in Eugene, Oregon, Tim hails originally from Austin, Texas. At Lewis and Clark, he majored in psychology and French studies. But he counts his study abroad experience in France among the most important experiences during his time at Lewis and Clark. Indeed, when I asked him about his best moment in the last 4 years, he did not hesitate to tell me about being invited warmly into the home of a French couple in Lyon while hitchhiking over 3 days, I understand, between Strasbourg and Marseille. Tim, I hope your family is not learning about this escapade from me right now for the first time. If so, my apologies to the Marcroft family. Tim has a very positive outlook on life. I do not dwell in negativity, he told me. He is eager to experience what everyone calls the real world and plans to attend graduate school in social psychology. Tim, I can tell you from personal experience that there's nothing more real than life as a graduate student, which is best characterized as personal, intellectual, and professional development on a very tight budget. It is a privilege and honor to call to the stage one of Lewis and Clark's finest students, your senior speaker, Tim Marcroft.
Well, hello, everybody. I hope you're all ready for this, because we'll see if I am. First, I want to thank Dean Giulio DiPaolo for his maybe undeserved positive remarks on my behalf. And I want to thank Ray Suarez. He certainly wasn't boring, and I don't think any of us were bored. So if we could have another round of applause for him. Thank you to my family, to my friends, and to my fellow graduates of 2009, and especially to my mother. Without you, I wouldn't be here today. Now, when I told my friends that I had been nominated as senior speaker, their reactions were mixed. On the one hand were the people who wanted me to win because they thought that by my influence alone, I would turn this whole commencement proceeding into some sort of Groucho Marx-like spectacle. To them, I must apologize for the disappointment. There were, on the other hand, people who wanted me to fail because they wanted their senior speaker to be meaningful and austere. And to them as well, I must apologize. Like the other 7 worthy candidates who were nominated and delivered their speeches back in mid-March, all I have to give are my experiences, my thoughts, and my dreams for the future. Their words struck a chord with me, and as I turned them over in my head, the respect I have for the candidates who were not chosen becomes greater and greater. Now, very few people got a chance to hear all of the speeches, and I would like to share with you a few of the core ideas that have stuck with me even today. I learned that politics is the art of the possible, and humility and dedication are required to be a truly great human being. I learned that it was clearly demonstrated to me that the hope of a young generation has already changed this nation and that it can do so much more in the future. I was shown that the way we see ourselves, our individual identities, shape our national identity. I was taught that life, particularly college life, moves much like a game of chess where we play against ourselves and are winners simply in the playing of the game. I had it brought home to me that we must extend a full measure of humanity to everybody, and we must become we rather than us and them. I was reminded of the value and necessity of skepticism in our modern marketplace of ideas. And finally, I learned about the philosophy of the joke and the importance of a good breakfast. While I am committing the pinnacle of hubris by presuming to represent the entire class of 2009, I do so with great pride in your accomplishments and no small measure of humility. Some of you, or maybe all of you, may recall that 4 years ago I showed up on campus for my first day of new student orientation. I see you do remember. Wearing a coyote tail. Now, without going into precisely why this was the case, suffice it to say that it was about a foot long, tan, bushy, and hung from the back belt loop of my pants. I had just arrived from Eugene, where I had become somewhat well known for this strange clothing choice, and was stepping into a community that had no context for this particular accessory. I was anxious, naturally, that I would be judged and excluded for my odd adornment. But within hours of my arrival, I found that quite the opposite was true. I found a school full of people who were curious, rather than judgmental, of new things and of different people. Other students would come up to me and ask, with honest curiosity brimming over into their voices, "Hey man, what's up with the tail?" I see that more than a few of you remember those moments. While I'm certain that I never gave a truly satisfactory answer to any of you, the reception that I received immediately afterwards was not mockery or awkwardness, but a sort of jovial camaraderie that led to many impassioned late-night discussions full of self-reflection and of new ideas. Even after I left the tail behind me, so to speak, I continued to find in my peers a gathering of searchers and of thinkers exploring and understanding novel experiences, not avoiding thought by way of simple judgments. This curiosity and complexity of thought is at the heart of what makes our institution great. It is easy to see something new and simply cast it aside without considering it, but to get a real and meaningful understanding of a person, a place, or a thing requires real effort and pays real dividends. We, as Lewis and Clark graduates, have been taught to let our brains burn those few extra calories, to re-examine our preconceived ideas, and to try to gain meaningful understanding. And as all of you know from your own personal journeys throughout college and life, we are not alone in this quest. During my semester abroad in France, I made the potentially dubious choice, as Dean DePaulo mentioned, to spend a week hitchhiking towards the south. Now, to give you context, I spoke the language only well enough for basic communication at that point, and on top of that, I also had nowhere to stay pre-arranged along the road, and no way of knowing whether I would be picked up at all. I came close to giving up many times on that trip, but I knew that if I completed the journey from the far north of France to its southern coast, that I would have something special to remember for the rest of my life. This still left the problems of food, shelter, and transportation to solve, though, and for those, I had to rely on the kindness of others. At every stop of the way and on every leg of the journey, I was helped along by many kind, strange, and wonderful people. There was the young woman working in biological engineering who had never picked up a hitchhiker before, but for some reason saw in my beat-up cardboard sign and friendly smile a reason to trust me. Or the homeless kid from northern France just looking for adventure. Or the bohemian couple in Lyon who let me stay there, introduced me to their friends, and showed me the hidden places of their city. With each passing mile, I met new people who were able to look beyond the obvious and see a person, a place, or a thing for its true value. I know that all of you, whether you stayed here or whether you went abroad, can attest to the hope we feel when we meet such a person. Now, we are not the majority in this world, but on this campus we exist in such concentration that for us not to make positive change would be startling. We stand staring out at the wide world, beautiful and threatening thing that it is, and we see problems. We have jobs to find, rent to pay, and blooming social consciousnesses to appease. We are stepping into an economic turmoil the likes of which nobody in this country has seen in 2 generations. Yet, when I look out at you, my fellow graduates, I don't see despair or resignation. I see in all of you, ready to face these challenges head-on with determination, intelligence, and character. I see nobody who wants to retreat from the tough realities of our modern times. It's a shame that we are the last class that will have taken Inventing America here at Lewis and Clark College. Because this is our task, the reinventing of America and of our world. Large as this task may be, never forget how lucky we are. By virtue of our upbringing, our heritage, our schooling, or blind and simple chance, we have received a world-class education in a world where only a few are so fortunate. We have gotten to live an easy life on campus where our needs are provided for, and while the cost was not insignificant, the gains were unquestionably greater. When we compare our lot in life to that of most of the world's peoples, we cannot help but be struck by the overwhelming injustice of it all. Why are we so lucky? What makes us special? I can't tell you that. I don't know why I'm living this life instead of a less fortunate one. What I do know is that it is unfair and that it is up to us to balance the scales. We must go forth with the tools we have forged here at Lewis and Clark and reshape the world. We must right what wrongs we can and see injustice for what it is. We have the tools to be the hero of the story of our own lives. It is up to us to use them. Fellow graduates of 2009, as Oscar Wilde once famously said, "The world expects so much of us, but surely no less than we expect of ourselves." Please join me in saluting the institution that helped us get here. Our journey is just beginning. Carthago delenda est.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great talk.